que diría que yo estaba tenéis la opinión ahora y levantar la mano. Please, short questions and very clear, please. Claro, mucho antes que sorry, I forget it.
Hola a tothom, gràcies per haver vingut avui a veure aquesta pel·lícula i per veure'ns a nosaltres. Disculpeu? El que volíem amb aquesta pel·lícula és que tingués un efecte artesanal, que es veiés l'artesania del que fèiem. De fet, l'escriure amb aquest to poètic, volíem allunyar-nos de les paraules i posar-nos dins del cap del personatge i sentir el que podia sentir. I es comentaven les referències a les novel·les gràfiques que per en Benedict van ser un descobriment, i després es comentava la música que el director, en Dylan, va crear una llista de reproducció de les cançons que volia que apareguessin i que unes setmanes abans del rodatge va compartir amb en Benedict perquè entrés dins d'aquest món cultural per al personatge, i de fet hi havia algunes cançons que estaven especificades dins del guió. Van compartir entre els dos des de l'inici una mena de llenguatge cultural i el director Dylan li anava enviant les diferents influències que volia que estiguessin integrades dins de la pel·lícula i que representaven el personatge. A més, amb aquest caràcter acadèmic i el rerefons que tenia, com havia conegut a la seva dona, doncs vam poder rebre totes aquestes influències i que van ser de gran utilitat també les xerrades que van tenir sobre el personatge.
Yes, no question.
I'll try to make it short. In recent years, actors like Andrew Garfield or musicians like Nick Cave have shared their experiences with loss and grief. That was not a common thing a few years ago. It seems like there's a new conversation about those issues, and I wonder if you wanted, with your part and with this film, to be part of this conversation.
Well, yeah.
Why not?
I mean, obviously, in a way, I don't, it's... If you live for a certain amount of time and you love, you're going to experience loss. That's the nature of being human. So the older any of us get, and the more experience we have, and sadly, as we see in the world, you don't have to be able to experience great loss at the moment. You do. You have to grieve, and it's part of living a life. So it's rare as well as a male to sort of examine that culturally. I think it's a little rarer. So yes, I see why Andrew and Nick have been taught of this, spoken of as examples. Yes, I do. I think it's very important. It's very important to show that vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness. And that to feel out of control and chaotic and overwhelmed by something that's unexpected, unwelcome, and unpleasant is sadly part of the extraordinary kaleidoscope of being human. Good luck.
La pregunta era si, parlava de les referències d'Andrew Garfield i Nick Cave sobre la pèrdua i el dol, que no és gaire comú exposar i experimentar aquests temes, i si ell volia formar part d'aquesta conversa. I la resposta és que sí, evidentment, perquè si has viscut suficientment la teva vida, has experimentat la pèrdua i cal viure la pèrdua, forma part de la vida. I comenta que és poc freqüent que la gent vulgui experimentar i expressar aquest tema, però sí que Andrew Garfield ho va considerar un tema important. Cal remarcar quan ens sentim fora de control, ens sentim que ens agobia tot el que ens envolta. Tot això són sentiments que formen part de ser un ésser humà.
Hi, here in the first row. Sorry, I can't stand up because of the computer. I want to ask you, there are some things in this character, in this film, that remind me of your character in the TV series Eric. And I wonder if you think that art is a good way to go through loss of someone you love. In the series is a son that is not dead, but you can find it, and this is real death. And if you as an artist, you have more tools to go through loss. Thank you.
Yes, there are similar devices. One is a particular psychosomatic split, a schizophrenic split of self. But it is through his obsession with work, or his need to work, to create a signal to fish out into the world for his son to come home. This is slightly different. This is not something that's invited in. This is something that barges in when a man tries to lose himself in his work, to forget the pain perhaps, or to have another focus. And it then becomes characterized by his pain. It literally hits him across the face in a punishing way I feel, to awaken him to the reality he has to live with. And then the film is about how that's accommodated into him as part of him, and also let go of in a way in our version, because he releases this book, he releases this work, as well as the ashes at the end. It's about acceptance and letting go. I can't remember the second part of the question.
More tools to go through.
More
tools, more
tools. Yeah, well, the older, I guess the older you get as an actor, the more life experience you have. So of course, you know, you gain a few more rings in the bark and scars. You know, it's good working material.
La pregunta...
No, I was thinking you had an answer to that question before. You didn't act in the film. I didn't know that. I remember. You're in it. He's in it. And when you get to know a director really well, you start going, I see. Yes, there is some of you in this character. For sure. There is. There is.
La pregunta era que tant el seu personatge com la pel·lícula recorden una mica Eric, la sèrie de televisió, i que si ell considerava que l'art és una bona manera per poder lidiar amb la pèrdua d'una persona a la que estimes, tot i que en l'altra pel·lícula no mor, sinó que no la troba. I si com a artista té més eines per poder lidiar amb el dol. I la resposta és que sí, que és una cosa similar, perquè experimentes el que és una mena de separació psicosomàtica, i ell, al tenir aquesta obsessió amb la feina, aquí és una mica diferent, perquè el que li arriba és una presència que ningú ha convidat a venir, que simplement entra allà i quan ell intenta centrar-se en la feina per intentar evadir-se de la resta del món, després li arriba el dolor i literalment li dona una bufetada a la cara. Quan intenta despertar-lo i fer-lo viure en aquesta realitat que li cal viure, li cal afrontar. Llavors, quan fa el llançament del llibre o quan llança les cendres, doncs finalment és com que deixa anar. I sí, com a artista crec que tenim eines que ens permeten fer un bon treball, i ara comentaven que el director també, no sé si volia respondre la pregunta o no. Did you want to answer the question as well, Digga?
No. Another question?
Hi, Ben. First of all, thank you for coming here. I was wondering if the vulnerability that you were talking about doing this representation of grief is the same that you could use when you did Patrick Melrose, for example, because I think that the demons that he had inside, that he didn't know how to take them out or how to express them. If you could feel that this is the same vulnerability, and how do you approach them if you create some playlist as he did for you, or you just follow your instincts?
They're different every time. They're different because the circumstances are different, the characters are different. So, in the case of Patrick Melrose, he's grieving his own loss of innocence as a child who was habitually raped by his father. So, I think, and unloved by his mother, so he's searching for that condolence in drug abuse, and this is very different. It's very, very different. I think every circumstance has to be examined and worked on for the conditioning of that particular character. And so I have to build a world that's not on our screen, where this person existed in a relationship to a woman, to understand who that person was and also what they had between them, the third thing, and then the fourth thing, their relationship to their children, and also how that balance of work and home life and routine. And if you build that world well enough and you have places in your environment that are memories of that, then you feel the aching absence, and then that starts to affect how you feel, and then you grieve, you are able to exist in that character's emotion. But yeah, that was what I did before we started shooting, and then I also listened to the boys' voiceover about their mum. That was very affecting for me to listen to. It still is when I see the film. It's the moment I cried. And other things took me by surprise. It was packing clothes into a box. It was passing a doorway and seeing a picture on the wall. So, yeah, it's always different for every character, very much.
La pregunta era que si el dol que patia o que sentia era el mateix que Patrick Melrose, que com el treia, com l'expressava, com l'enfocava, si ho feia seguint els seus instints. Ell comenta que són circumstàncies molt diferents que les circumstàncies de Patrick Melrose, perquè en el cas d'en Patrick està tenint un dol per la pèrdua de la seva innocència, amb tot el tema del consum de drogues, etc. Aquest cas era molt diferent i s'ha d'estudiar, s'ha d'examinar cada circumstància en el seu cas, i aquí havia de crear tot un món per entendre la relació amb la seva dona, amb el tercer i quart factor d'aquella relació, que eren els seus fills, i si aconseguia construir correctament tot aquest món, llavors podia arribar a aquests llocs, a aquests records amb la seva dona i finalment sentir el dolor de la seva absència. Llavors, a l'aconseguir-ho, ja podia existir dins del sentiment del personatge. També escoltar a les criatures com parlaven de la seva mare, aquest moment em va fer plorar, o també altres casos com posar la roba dins d'una caixa o passar per un passadís al costat d'una foto de la mare, però sí, crec que són casos diferents.
Hi there. First of all, thank you both for such a moving, beautiful film. And apologies, Mr. Cumberbatch, because my question is not nearly as profound as every other question. So you've always walked along the lines of a lot of different genres in your work, and can I just say your episode of Saturday Night Live and The Roses are two of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. But it is true that you've also played some of the biggest characters in fantasy or fantasy-adjacent genres. did you actively pursue them, or did they come your way? And if it wasn't that genre, which one would you like? If you had to spend the rest of your career in one, which one would it be?
That in itself would be a horror film for me, because I don't like the idea of being trapped in one thing. Thank you. Yes, no, I never sorted out. I think Sherlock was the first moment where I went, oh, hello, this is a big pair of shoes to step into. And I knew even if it wasn't as good as I had faith that it would be, because of Stephen and Mark's scripts and imagination and fanboy accuracy, I knew that there would be a lot of attention paid to it. It's very character. But no, I didn't actively seek it out, and then it's also a lot came at once. You know, smart, calm. I'm forgetting the others, but well, strange, obviously. And, you know, it's just kind of the way the cookie crumbled. And I really started out in this profession wanting to do a varied amount of work and make a living and be with people I respected and earn their respect. That was my bar. And then things started to get quite fruity. And here we are.
I think you have managed that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
La pregunta era, deia que no seria una pregunta gaire profunda com la resta, però sí que sempre ha estat treballant amb diferents tipus de gèneres, fins i tot mencionava una pel·lícula que havia sigut divertidíssima on apareixia ell, però que també ha participat en grans personatges del cinema fantàstic. Pregunta si és quelcom que ell ha intentat buscar o li ha caigut així del cel. I ell comentava, bueno, en tot cas que quin terror, el quedar encaixat en un mateix gènere per tota la vida, però que quan va rebre el paper de Sherlock sí que es va adonar que, ostres, li havien donat una cosa ben grossa, però que això era gràcies a Stephen Mark, el creador de l'univers de Sherlock, que era un gran fan i devot de Sherlock i sabia que això acabaria sent gran i que rebia molta atenció, però realment no ho va buscar, li va anar arribant i finalment va arribar com tot d'acord i ell l'únic que volia en uns inicis era poder llançar-se en aquesta professió, viure d'això i envoltar-se de gent interessant, que ho ha aconseguit.
Mi pregunta es para los dos, pero quizás realmente es más para Dylan. Me gustaría saber cómo habéis trabajado la concepción de la criatura, del cuerpo, tanto físicamente como a nivel de metáfora, porque me parece francamente terapéutica.
The question is for both of you, but especially for Dylan. So how did you work in the creation of the creature, physically but also as a metaphor?
I mean, that was one of the questions that was always asked by anybody that knew I was adapting the book, was how are you going to do Crow? For me, it always had to be a physical, practical effect that was on set with the actors. I didn't want to do CGI, I wanted it to be something tangible and touchable that you could see the texture of and feel the presence of. And I mean, that started with the design of Crow, and there was only one person I ever wanted to design Crow, and that's a sculptor, a British fine artist called Nicola Hicks. And if you don't know her work, you should look her up, because she creates these incredible half-man, half-beast, mythological kind of creatures. So I approached her, and she agreed to design Crow. The next step was to turn her design into a wearable costume. So again, I worked with a team from Creatures Inc., led by Conor O'Sullivan, who had worked with Ridley Scott on Alien films and things, and they brilliantly translated Nicola's sculpture into a prosthetic head and this incredible costume. That was then worn by the physical actor Eric Lampere, who's a brilliant physical performer who studied at the Coq in Paris, and he brought Crow's physicality to the film. And then the final element was I always wanted Crow to be voiced by David Thewlis. Big fan of Mike Leigh's film Naked, and his performance in that had the kind of spiky compelling but also repels you at the same time, quality. So Crow was, created for the film by 4 very different artists who are all bringing a unique thing that they could do to create a singular character. And then in terms of working with him as a metaphor, I think, that was all in Max's book to begin with. It's a really in-your-face metaphor. It's not subtle, and grief isn't subtle. So I think a lot of that came from Max's writing in the book in the first place, but then how we could convert that into a visual language for the screen. And sometimes that was borrowing tropes from horror, or it was kind of looking at shadow theatre, just any way that we could make Crow a presence in the flat that felt otherworldly, but also like he was actually there and belonged there. It's quite a long answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that's correct. That's okay.
La resposta és que... La pregunta... La resposta deia que ell sempre havia volgut treballar amb efectes pràctics, en cap moment va voler utilitzar imatges generades per l'ordinador. Ell volia que se sentís aquesta presència realment. Llavors, a l'inici, quan van decidir com dissenyarien aquest corp, van parlar amb Nicola Hicks, si no la coneixeu, busqueu-la, té grans obres, crea obres que són meitat home, meitat bèstia. Llavors li vaig demanar el disseny i amb el seu disseny vam començar a elaborar la disfressa. Llavors, després amb la resta de l'equip, doncs, per exemple, amb en Cameron Sullivan, que havia participat a Alien, ens va començar a ajudar. Llavors la Nicola va crear un cap prostètic i finalment vam contactar amb Eric Lambert, que és un artista físic format a París, que és el que duia la disfressa en si, i finalment David Collis, que li va posar la veu. Havíem vist ja com actuava amb la veu David Collis en altres obres i tenia una veu que atreia però alhora repelia. I van ser aquestes 4 respostes que, si les uníem, vam aconseguir finalment aquest personatge. I com a metàfora, doncs, és una metàfora que te la trobes plantada al mig de la cara només llegint l'obra de Max Porter. I la nostra feina, la nostra labor va ser poder exportar aquesta metàfora i traslladar-la al llenguatge visual, doncs a través de l'horror, de les ombres, perquè realment tinguessis la sensació que dins d'aquell pis hi havia una presència de fora d'aquest món.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming, both of you. It's a question for both of you, I think. I'm interested in the development of the project, and I know you have film 4 behind you, but you also, and you've got your own production company. I think it's Sunny March, and I saw that as credited as well as producers, and you're on EP. So how did the project actually start off? I mean, who came on board first, if you don't mind me asking? Was it Dylan, obviously, but then my question really is, are you getting also more into production yourself as a producer, or is that just a coincidence on this project?
No, very much not a coincidence. We decided to come on and help with Andrew and Lobo Films, Andrea, and Dylan approached me initially for interest in parts, and then we took it on to produce. Anne Mackler, my partner, and Leah Clark. It was very dear to our hearts, this film, this project, from the book that we had all read. And to make a film on this scale, a small independent film budget, and with a first-time feature director, this is sort of in our wheelhouse. We like to do things that are innovative and risk-taking and platforming new talent, and at the same time the subject spoke to us very, very profoundly. I love producing, to answer the other part of your question. I've been doing it now for about 15 years, or 12 at least. The film that Andrew's film, Andrew Garfield's film, We Live in Time, was something I also produced with last year. It's hugely satisfying as a creative outlet. You're there with a project from its inception to its delivery, its completion, and to have the whole lifespan, a journey of a film, 1 to sometimes 7, 8, 10 years is phenomenal, it's wonderful. And, you know, bringing the collective creative families together, I get a great kick out of that. You know, for example, with Melrose, which we also produced, we put Ed Berger with the DOP he'd never worked with before, James Friend, and then they go on to win the Oscar for All Part in the Western Front. So that gives me a great sense of pride. And one of the reasons I wanted to get into producing wasn't just the material that was coming to me that I didn't have a lifetime enough to do, but also, which is part of it, I like to platform other people's projects and talents. We're very much led by female artists as well in that regard, but also to create that creative thing, that odd thing you get when you put a collective of artists together, that alchemy, and create within that a working environment that's conducive to people wanting to come back to work with us again, which has proven so far to be successful, but we're always learning. Another one. A sentence at a time, maybe.
La pregunta era sobre el desenvolupament del projecte, que com s'havia portat a terme, qui havia iniciat el projecte, si havia sigut en Dylan, com havia acabat en Benedict formant part fent de productor de la pel·lícula. I comenta que va ser a l'inici amb l'Andrea, Dylan van veure que els interessava el tema, ell també volia ser-ne productor, juntament amb la Marta, la seva parella, Dick Clark. Llavors van decidir que volien fer una pel·lícula independent. A ells els agrada fer projectes arriscats, trobar nous talents, i aquest era un tema profund que els inspirava. I de fet diu que li encanta fer de productor, ja fa 12, potser 15 anys que fa de productor, i que ho trobo molt satisfactori perquè pots veure el procés de vida de tota una pel·lícula des de l'inici fins al final, i a vegades tarden 7, 8 anys i és un procés fantàstic de veure. De fet, ha participat en altres projectes en els que ha pogut fer de productor, dels quals se sent molt orgullós. I a vegades hi ha projectes en els que no hi podries participar perquè no tens prou temps, però ser-ne productor et permet formar part de projectes, de nous talents i de crear coses ben curioses. És a dir, quan barreges diferents artistes que col·laboren entre ells, et permet arribar a resultats molt interessants, i creu que per això aconsegueixen que després aquesta gent tingui tantes ganes de tornar a treballar amb ells.
Well done. That was almost long enough for a game of poker. You should have cards up here, maybe that's the way to do it.
Ens ha donat tant de temps que gairebé haguéssim pogut fer una partida de pòquer.
Dylan's got an idea, everybody.
La meva pregunta és per Benedict Cumberbatch. Here.
Hello.
Hi. És sobre com va ser treballar amb els dos actors joves que em sembla que són novells, com va ser interactuar amb ells i després també com va ser actuar davant de la criatura sent una criatura animatrònica.
The question was, so how was it to, it's for Benedict, sorry, so how was it to work with the two children, and also how was it to work with the creature that was created by animatronics?
Dylan can also answer this one, but yes, it was challenging. They're extraordinary boys. They were 7 and they'd never acted before this film. That was something that I think Dylan saw in them with our casting director, Shaheen, thank you. It was brilliant at finding especially untrained actors. And I came out of the audition quite scared. They are wonderful 7-year-olds, and they were just chaotic human beings in a room. And I thought, how are we going to complete the day? We have 6 weeks. We have a man on stilts with a pyrotechnic, that would be extraordinary. Animatronic head, thank you. Or prosthetic, yes. We have a lot of moving pieces and very little money and very little time. However, through treating them as the children that they are, as a parent, friend, but also as someone who's responsible for as a producer, their safeguarding, but also as a colleague, a fellow actor, and also a friend. I had a blast. It was great fun. That was hard work sometimes, but it's weird when your time gets narrowed, when you're pressured, when you have less space, it just refines your focus and concentration. And they also, in and of themselves, as Dylan knew they would be, were and are absolutely exceptional. And as I said before, one of the chief helps for me to plug into the loss that this character experiences was to listen to them talking about their mum. I adore them, but yeah, we could go there. We could go to, they punched each other in the dick during the scene where I was trying to tell them how grateful I was about how wonderful they'd been putting up with sad angry men.
They gave me a nickname on the first day of shooting, which was Weak Man. I was trying to kind of sort of get the confidence of the crew. In the first time direction, these two 7-year-olds just saw blood and they're like, here comes Weak Man.
And then there was a scene where they put on their mum's clothes and they're dressing up, and they're playing with her lipstick and the jewellery, and I come in and it just fries my brain, I lose it, and they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to go anywhere near the jewellery or the makeup. And so Dylan went, okay, right, you can take the lipstick and write what you want on me. And they wrote poo across his face.
Whatever it takes to get the shot.
But we had pillow fights, we had games, we had little soccer matches in the hallway, which you weren't part of because you were working, sorry.
First time I've heard about that.
Yeah, you've missed out. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, and they're gorgeous human beings. Yeah.
Va ser un gran repte perquè eren criatures de 7 anys que no havien actuat mai abans, però realment des del moment que els van triar en el càsting van ser fantàstics. De fet, jo vaig sortir una mica espantat del càsting, perquè vaig veure allà 2 criatures de 7 anys caòtiques i vaig pensar, com ho farem això en 6 setmanes? Però la veritat és que, mira, teníem poc temps, teníem poc pressupost, així que al final, tractant-los com el que eren, com criatures, donant-los un efecte de pare, però alhora de productor, de company de professió i també com a amic, vam aconseguir que fos una experiència divertida, difícil també, però realment quan es té poc espai de maniobra acabes trobant més concentració i et centres més en el que has de fer. Ells van ser excepcionals durant el rodatge i, com comentava abans, per mi escoltar-los amb ells parlar de la seva mare és el que em va ajudar a trobar la inspiració del dol, de la pèrdua. I això no vol dir que entre escenes de vegades es donaven patades als ous, no? Perquè eren criatures. Però jo també els deia que ho feien molt bé, que gràcies per estar en aquest mode trist per estar dins de la pel·lícula. I en Dylan comenta que li van triar un nom, a ell li deien el weak man, que és l'home dèbil. I llavors un dia me recordo que vaig arribar i em miren i diuen, ui, mireu, aquí arriba l'home dèbil. I amb l'escena que es posen la roba i les joies, ells de fet no ho volien fer, no volien apropar-se a aquella roba, no volien apropar-se a aquelles joies. I els hi vaig dir, doncs mira, sabeu què? Podeu agafar el pintallavis i escriviu el que vulgueu o pinteu el que vulgueu amb mi. I li van escriure caca en el front. També van fer lluites de coixins, jugàvem també a futbol entre escenes, bueno, el Dylan no, perquè el Dylan estava treballant i ara se n'assabenta d'aquests partits de futbol, però en fi va ser una experiència molt divertida i són criatures fantàstiques.
We didn't, no, I know the rude word, we didn't, part of the question, Eric in the costume, that was also quite difficult because you couldn't really hear him very well, but he was giving a very vocal performance, doing a David Thewlis impression, and sometimes he'd walk into bits of the set because he was on 4-foot stilts, and it was an inordinately difficult thing for him to be doing, but it was very hard sometimes to work with a real thing when it's an imagined thing. So sometimes it was great that there was this presence to throw things at, to fight with, to feel, something real. And at other times, the kind of fantasy element of it was difficult because it was there. Sometimes it's easier being in a grey mocap suit crawling around a room like this, pretending to be a full 100-year-old, whatever he is, half a mile long, fire-breathing flying dragon, than it is to actually be a 400-year-old, half a mile long, fire-breathing dragon. So if I had little wings and a tail and a little pyrotechnic mouth, I'd like to see that on YouTube. It would be harder in a way than just having nothing. Do you see what I mean? So it was both helpful and very distracting at the same time.
Pel que fa referència a la segona part de la pregunta de com va ser treballar amb la criatura aquesta, comenta que era una mica difícil, no? Tenir l'Eric allà amb la disfressa posada perquè a més també el podies sentir, tenia una actuació vocal bastant remarcable i algunes vegades, clar, quan el tenies allà al costat amb les xanques i que era tan alt, ostres, doncs es feia difícil, no? Poder entrar en el personatge, però alhora també treballar amb un aspecte real, algú a qui podies llançar-li coses, contra qui podies enfadar, també feia que fos més fàcil, no? Però no, a vegades era això, difícil tenir-lo allà entre nosaltres. Suposo que si fos un drac que escup foc i que vola, que té 400 anys, potser amb cua i ales, potser hagués sigut diferent. M'agradaria veure com quedaria això en un vídeo de YouTube. Però bueno, tenir-lo així va ser útil, però alhora distreia bastant.
One last question, please. Here.
Okay, first, thank you for being here, both of you. For you, Mr. Southern, a couple of hours ago, both of you said that you have a deep connection with the main novel, with the book. I would like to know what was in the book that made the click to say, I want to make this feature film. And for you, Mr. Cumberbatch, what is it about independent film, first feature film, that brings an actor with your career to participate? Is it about the source material? Is it about the collaboration with in this case, Mr. Dylan? But I'm interested in knowing. Thank you.
Yeah, I read Max's wonderful novel, Grief is a Thing with Feathers, 10 years ago. Around the time it came out, a friend sent it to me, and I read it, finished it, and read it straight away again because it just moved me so much. I kind of never read anything that tackled the subjects of grief in such a idiosyncratic way. Like Max is so amazing with structure and words and just, in a very thin volume, just developing these ideas that were so truthful and so honest. It's not sentimental about grief. It's very parts of the book are kind of violent and parts of them are really funny and parts of them are ugly or vulgar, but it's all in service of this truth about grief and grieving that I had never kind of encountered before. And I'd lost two friends when I was around 18, and I think it maybe in a very English or very kind of male repressed way had never dealt with that. So I found something in the book that felt really kind and really kind of like as I say, honest and authentic about that representation of grief, and it unlocked things for me. So I think I also just loved how visual the book was and how kind of crazy Crow was as a character, and that you could go to these places in telling a story that might be seen as quite heavy, but Crow kind of has that black humour, and it's just a really refreshing way of dealing with that subject, and I just became obsessed with the idea of making it, and it took 10 years, but here we are.
La primera pregunta, que era per en Dylan, era que ell havia comentat aquesta connexió tan profunda que tenia amb el llibre i què era el que hi havia en el llibre que li va fer dir vull fer una pel·lícula sobre aquest llibre. En Dylan comenta que va llegir el llibre fa 10 anys, just quan va sortir una amistat seva, un amic li va enviar, i tan bon punt el va haver acabat se'n va tornar a llegir. Mai havia llegit cap llibre que parlés d'una manera tan directa del dol, però a la vegada el que li agrada és que Max Porter parla del dol en un volum molt fi, però amb una idea molt honesta i no sentimental, i sempre en el servei de la veritat del dol. Jo vaig perdre 2 amics quan tenia 18 anys i no sé si és perquè soc britànic, perquè soc un home, però no vaig lidiar mai amb aquella pèrdua. I llegir aquest llibre va desbloquejar certes coses dins meu. I aquest llibre el trobo molt visual, és una història molt intensa, però que a la vegada l'ocell negre, el corp, gràcies, el corp aconsegueix gestionar humor i és un llibre que em va obsessionar des del principi, la idea de poder fer-la, i mira, aquí em veieu 10 anys després d'haver-la llegit.
El llibre muy visual. Yeah, very much for me too. A very cinematic read, very visual. And primarily this wasn't about the budget we would have or Dylan being a first-time director. We trust first-time directors. We can work with small budgets as a production company, but I was drawn to like Dylan because of the material. It read immediately to me as an amazingly very cinematic landscape. The character of Crow, as you say, the chaos of it, the odd angle on this family and where it took them on this journey with this creature. So then beyond that, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel incredibly proud it's nothing to do with where my career's at, really. It's just wanting to make good films. And if a good film exists in a lower budget bracket because of the culture we're in now, or just because of circumstances of that particular project, it doesn't make any difference to me. I want to do it if the material is right and the relationship with the director is right. And this was just, there was no questioning it. And I felt, I still feel, there was a moment of going, hang on a minute, it's been a very successful play. And why isn't Killian doing it? When I heard, no, he'd had his journey, he felt he was moving on now. I thought, okay, right, fine, then let me read the script. The script answered any queries about whether it could exist in another iteration. It is a very personal book and story, but there are spaces in the book, as Max points out, and they are for the literal spaces, actually, like how the print is laid on the page. And they are spaces for us to occupy as a reader, as participant in the story, and that left room for our imagining of it, our offering of it. And yes, I think I grew up watching the kind of films that struggle for life now, by the kind of filmmakers that struggle to have their visions financed, and I'm only too happy to climb off some other thing to do something that isn't, to me, lower. It's actually as high. It's just in a different budget bracket. And to me, it's about trying to do good art, no matter where it is. It can be a fringe theatre, it can be a Hollywood movie, it can be a television series, it can be a radio play. It doesn't matter. Just make it good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
cinemàtic i no es tractava del pressupost de la pel·lícula perquè confiem en els directors novells. Jo simplement volia treballar en aquesta pel·lícula pel material, per aquest paisatge cinematogràfic, pel caos, pels corps, per la ràbia de la família, tot aquest procés d'aquesta criatura. No ho sé, no ho tinc clar. Tinc la sensació que n'estic molt orgullós, no pel moment de la meva carrera en el que em trobo, sinó perquè m'agrada fer bones pel·lícules. I a mi m'agrada que si el material és bo, si la relació que tinc amb el director és bona, doncs m'agrada poder-hi participar. I també és un llibre molt personal que té, literalment, ens dona espai, té literalment espais també dins del llibre, hi ha fragments en blanc, però ens dona espais que nosaltres podem ocupar com a participants. I crec que a mi, des que soc petit, m'ha agradat veure pel·lícules en les que ha costat poder-les fer i poder donar veu a aquests directors que tenen una visió d'una pel·lícula però els hi falta potser a vegades el recurs econòmic per poder-les dur a terme. Per mi el meu objectiu és aconseguir fer bon art. M'és igual si es tracten de pel·lícules franceses, Hollywood, Radio Play, el que m'importa és fer bon art.
With us in Sitges and for your presence here in the festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.